You're listening to The Okanagan Reader, where we present readings of short stories and other works that have been released under a Creative Commons license by their creators. You are free to listen to and share these readings as set out in their version of the Creative Commons license. Today's reading is part 1 of Every Angel is Terrifying, written by John Kessel and narrated by Jim Bowering. And now, Part 1 of Every Angel is Terrifying by John Kessel. Bobby Lee grabbed the grandmother's body under the armpits and dragged her up the other side of the ditch. "Why don't you help him, Hiram?" Railroad said. Hiram took off his coat, skidded down into the ditch after Bobby Lee, and got hold of the old lady's legs. Together, he and Bobby Lee lugged her across the field toward the woods. Her broken blue hat was still pinned to her head, which lolled against Bobby Lee's shoulder. The woman's face watched Railroad all the way into the shadow of the trees. Railroad carried the cat over to the Studebaker. It occurred to him that he didn't know the cat's name, and now that the whole family was dead, he never would. It was a calico, gray-striped, with a broad white face and an orange nose. "What's your name, Puss-Puss?" he whispered, scratching it behind the ears. The cat purred. One by one, Railroad went round and rolled up the windows of the car. A fracture zigzagged across the windshield, and the front passenger's vent window was shattered. He stuffed Hiram's coat into the hole. Then he put the cat inside the car and shut the door. The cat put his paws up on the dashboard and, watching him, gave a silent meow. Railroad pushed his glasses up and stared off toward the tree line. The place was hot and still, silence broken only by bird song from somewhere up the embankment. He squinted up into the cloudless sky. Only a couple of hours of sun left. He rubbed the spot on his shoulder where the grandmother had touched him. Somehow he had wrenched it when he jerked away from her. The last thing the grandmother had said picked at him. "You're one of my own children." The old lady looked familiar, but nothing like his mother. Maybe his father had sown some wild oats in the old days. Railroad knew he had. Could the old lady have been his mother for real? It would explain why the woman who had raised him, the sweetest of women, was saddled with a son as bad as he was. The idea caught in his head. He wished he'd had the sense to ask the grandmother a few questions. The old woman might have been sent to tell him the truth. When Hiram and Bobby Lee came back, they found Railroad leaning under the hood of the car. "What do we do now?" Bobby Lee asked. "Police could be here any minute," Hiram said. Blood was smeared on the leg of his khaki pants. Somebody might have heard the shots. Railroad pulled himself out from under the hood. "Onlyest thing we got to worry about now, Hiram, is how we get this radiator to stop leaking. You find a tire iron and straighten out this here fan. Bobby Lee, you get the belt off the other car." It took longer than the half hour Hiram had estimated to get the people's car back on the road. By the time they did, it was twilight, and the red dirt road shimmered in the shadows of the pine woods. They pushed the stolen Hudson they'd been driving off into the trees and got into the Studebaker. Railroad gripped the wheel of the car, and they bounced down the dirt road toward the main highway. Beside him, hat pushed back on his head, Hiram went through the dead man's wallet, while in the back seat, Bobby Lee had the cat on his lap and was scratching it under the chin. "Kitty, kitty, 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 kitty," he murmured. $68, Hiram said. "With the 22 from the purse, that makes 90. He turned around and handed a wad of bills to Bobby Lee. Get rid of that damn cat, he said. You want me to hold yours for you? He asked Railroad. Railroad reached over, took the bills, and stuffed them into the pocket of his yellow shirt with the bright blue parrots he wore. It had belonged to the husband who had been driving the car. Bailey Boy, the grandmother had called him. Railroad's shoulder twinged. The car shuddered. The wheels had been knocked out of kilter when it rolled. If he tried pushing past 50, it would shake itself right off the road. Railroad felt the warm weight of his pistol inside his belt against his belly. Bobby Lee hummed tunelessly in the back seat. Hiram was quiet, fidgeting, looking out at the dark trees. He tugged his battered coat out of the vent window, trying to shake some of the wrinkles out of it. You oughtn't use a man's coat without saying to him, he grumbled. Bobby Lee spoke up. He didn't want the cat to get away. Hiram sneezed. Will you throw that damn animal out the damn window? She never hurt you none, Bobby Lee said. Railroad said nothing. He had always imagined that the world was slightly unreal, that he was meant to be a citizen of some other place. His mind was a box. Outside the box was a realm of distraction, amusement, annoyance, and inside the box his real life went on, the struggle between what he knew and what he didn't know. He had a way of acting, polite, detached, because that way he wouldn't be bothered. When he was bothered, he got mad. When he got mad, bad things happened. He had always been prey to remorse, but now he felt it more fully than he had since he was a boy. He hadn't paid enough attention. He'd pegged the old lady as a hypocrite and had gone back into his box, thinking her just another fool from that puppet world. But the moment of her touching him, she wanted to comfort him, and he'd shot her. What was it the woman had said? You could be honest if you'd only try. Think how wonderful it would be to settle down and live a comfortable life, and not have to think about somebody chasing you all the time. He knew she was only saying that to save her life, but that didn't mean it couldn't be a message. Outside the box, Hiram asked, what was all that yammer with the grandmother about Jesus? We doing all the killing while you yammer. He did shoot the old lady, Bobby Lee said, and made us carry her to the woods, when if he'd waited she could have walked there like the others. We're the ones got blood on our clothes. Railroad said quietly, You don't like the way things are going, son? Hiram twitched against the seat like he was itchy between the shoulder blades. I ain't saying that. I just want out of this state. We going to Atlanta. In Atlanta we can get lost. Gonna get me a girl, Bobby Lee said. They got more cops in Atlanta than the rest of the state put together, Hiram said. In Florida. Without taking his eyes off the road, Railroad snapped his right hand across the bridge of Hiram's nose. Hiram jerked, more startled than hurt, and his hat tumbled off into the back seat. Bobby Lee laughed and handed Hiram his hat. It was after 11 when they hit the outskirts of Atlanta. Railroad pulled into a diner, the Sweet Spot, red brick and an asbestos-shingled roof, the air smelling of cigarettes and pork barbecue. Hiram rubbed some dirt from the lot into the stain on his pants leg. Railroad unlocked the trunk and found the dead man's suitcase full of clothes. He carried it in with them. On the radio that sat on the shelf behind the counter, Kitty Wells sang, It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels. Railroad studied the menu front and back and ordered biscuits and gravy. While they ate, Bobby Lee ran on about girls, and Hiram sat smoking. Railroad could tell Hiram was getting ready to do something stupid. Railroad didn't need either of them anymore. So, after they finished eating, he left the car keys on the table and took the suitcase into the men's room. He locked the door. He pulled his .38 out of his waistband, put it on the sink, and changed out of the too tight dungarees into some of the dead husband's baggy trousers. He washed his face and hands. He cleaned his glasses on the tail of the parrot shirt, then tucked in the shirt. He stuck the .38 into the suitcase and came out again. Bobby Lee and Hiram were gone, and the car was no longer in the parking lot. The bill on the table next to Hiram's still smoldering cigarette was for $6.80. Railroad sat in the booth drinking his coffee. In the window of the diner, near the door, he had noticed a piece of cardboard saying, "Wanted Fry Cook." When he was done with the coffee, he untaped the sign and headed to the register. After he paid the bill, he handed the cashier the sign. "I'm your man," he said. The cashier called the manager. "Mr. Cawthron, this man says he's a cook." Mr. Cawthron was maybe 35 years old. His carrot-red hair stood up in a pompadour like a rooster's comb, and a little belly swelled out over his belt. "What's your name?" "Lloyd Bailey." "Lloyd, what experience do you have?" "I can cook anything on this here menu," Railroad said. The manager took him back to the kitchen. "Stand aside, Shorty," the manager said to the tall black man at the griddle. "Fix me a Denver omelet," he said to Railroad. Railroad washed his hands, put on an apron, broke 2 eggs into a bowl. He threw handfuls of chopped onion, green pepper, and diced ham onto the griddle. When the onions were soft, he poured the beaten eggs over the ham and vegetables, added salt and cayenne pepper. When he slid the finished omelet onto a plate, the manager bent down over it as if he were inspecting the paint job on a used car. He straightened up. "Pays $30 a week. Be here at 6 in the morning."